Hi guys, welcome back to 30 Days to Your First Website Design, a Touch Plus premium course. I'm Ian Yates, and today we're going to continue with the behavioral aspect of our corporate website by implementing some form validation. We'll begin as always by taking a quick look at what we're going to cover in this video. Firstly, we'll take a look at what form validation is. Then we'll move on to our own project and update our CSS to style the form. Once that's done, we'll look at using a jQuery validation plugin. Lastly, as ever, I'll point you towards some further reading and set an assignment. Now, we've discussed forms before while we were designing our own, and we mentioned that forms are a classic potential stumbling block for users. One aspect of ensuring good usability on a form is to implement good form validation. We need users to understand what is required of them, and in the event of them not complying, by neglecting to fill in crucial information for example, we need them to be made clearly aware of it. Correct completion of a form is also often necessary for the form to actually work. If an email address is incorrectly entered, that could have problematic consequences. So how do we validate form data? Well, we need to check what's been entered as soon as the form is submitted. This can be done server-side, i.e. the data is checked by a PHP or ASP, Ruby script for example, then in the event of a problem returns to the form to alert the user. We can also do this client-side by using JavaScript, which is what we're going to be doing using a jQuery plugin. In our case, the data is going to be checked real-time in the browser. It's also possible these days to use validation native to HTML5. Now this is in its early stages of implementation of course, and not all browsers support it, but it will no doubt become standard relatively soon. For now though, let's jump into our CSS and clean up our own form. We'll leave our presentation there and remind ourselves what we were supposed to be dealing with by jumping into the PSD. This is what we were aiming for. And now if we open up our browser, we can see what we currently have. Now it's a long way to go, but actually there are only a few relatively simple rules required to get that looking ship shape. So let's open Coda, our project. And we'll begin at the bottom of our CSS file. Actually, it's about time I moved this clear fix stuff to the top because it's a sort of a general set of rules. Now we'll begin with our form styling at the bottom of our CSS. So we'll leave that there. Now the first thing we need to do is address the issue of the inputs and the text areas. Sorry, there was only one. They need significant styling. For a kickoff, they need to be the full width of our column, and I'm going to give them a bit of padding as well, and text indent just to shove the text. Oops, sorry, where is it? Within that field, a couple of pixels in, just to suggest more padding. Okay, that's looking better already. Now let's remove all the borders and the outlines, aside from, of course, that sizable green border which we placed on the bottom. This also defines some of the height and the line height of the input. There we go. Now instantly we've made a significant difference, and that's looking much more effective. We now need to apply a specific couple of styles to the text area because that differs in some ways, namely the height. So I'm going to just grab a rule for that. Again, you'll have to excuse me copying and pasting all the time, but the clock is ticking, I'm afraid, so I'm going to keep it brief. Okay, that's looking good. We now need to make sure that our label at the top there has a similar margin on the bottom to our paragraphs in order to bump down these inputs just to keep things nicely in line on the baseline grid there. So if I grab a rule for that, stick that in there, that displays our labels as a block and gives them a margin on the bottom. Okay, that's much neater. I do actually need to increase the size of that image whilst I'm about it. This was our map image, if you recall, that we're pulling from the Google Maps server. That's just going to bring our form nicely in line. Now there is one issue which is causing that to be slightly further down, and that is this required notification, which we're actually going to position absolutely within the parent paragraph tag, so that's going to fit up there and not be pushing anything further down. So in order for that to work, we'll first need a position of relative on our paragraph itself. So that's just saying that with any paragraph tags within our contact form are going to have that position of relative. Now if I grab our little error label styling, like so, I'll put that underneath here. And you can see I'm positioning it absolutely at the top and 5 pixels inwards. And the text is also aligned to the right, and I've given the whole thing a width of 80% just to arbitrarily stick it there in the top corner. I'm giving it that red colour which we worked on in our document, in our PSD, and I've assigned the correct typeface, size and font style italic there. So if I just save that and refresh quickly, you'll see that it's instantly a great deal more effective, and that everything else is now lining up much more conveniently for us. Now all we need to do is throw some styles onto our button there. So I will grab those simply like so. Now it looks complex, but there's not an awful lot going on here actually. I've added a WebKit transition just to experiment with the transition in Chrome, which we're testing in at the moment. You can see I've assigned a width and a height of 60 pixels, also a line height of 60 pixels, which is going to vertically center our text. Text align center deals with the horizontal centering. Then I've applied a margin to shunt it over towards the right. This border radius of half its width and height is going to turn it into a nice neat circle for us, with a background of that green color, no outline or border, and crucially I've assigned the cursor to be a pointer cursor, because we need to make it clear when we hover over our button that it actually behaves like a button. Let's now just give it a hover state by lightening the color and darkening the text like so. And that transition has made that just a little bit smoother for us. Now of course we can apply a similar idea that we did with our social links, because if I open up the PSD again, we did actually in our sprite cater for this button by adding a circle for both the normal and the hover states. So by editing our IE CSS file, we can actually make sure that in Internet Explorer older versions which don't support this styling can actually have a similar effect. Okay, so that's all style. That's looking a lot better. Now all we need to do is take care of this error alert dynamically. We're going to actually go and grab our validation plugin now and concentrate on implementing it into our site. Now this is the basassistents.e website. This is courtesy of Jorn Zaffera. Apologies if I've said that wrong, I undoubtedly have. He's one of the main contributors to the jQuery library. So this is a rock solid plugin with years of development behind it, and it's been used on some pretty big sites as well. So we're just going to grab it from the download link like so, and there it is straight away. I'm going to show that in the Finder and remove the browser window. Now we're going to unzip it, and you can see there's an awful lot that comes with it, some various demos and ideas, but actually we need very little of this. We really just need to grab either the whole main script or the minimized version. It makes very little difference which. So I'm going to grab the main validation script and just plug that straight into our JavaScript folder in our project. Now in a very similar fashion to our slideshow script, we basically just need to reference it underneath our having referenced jQuery to begin with. Let's make sure I name this correctly. That is validate. Classic opportunity to mess things up with a typo there. Okay, and now all that remains to do, having referenced it, is call the functions methods in our document ready method. So it's very similar syntax, which is why I've just copied and pasted that. We'll just comment that to make sure we know what we're dealing with. Now we're going to be targeting our contact form through its class contact form there. So I'll just paste that in there, and we are just calling the validate method. Simple as that. We're not doing anything fancy. We're just letting the whole thing do its job. So we're going to save that, and that is everything there that needed to be done. One more thing, we actually need to prepare our form for the script. We need to determine what we need to be required, if anything, and various other data validation. We'll get rid of this label here because that was our manual bit of static markup. That's all going to be dealt with dynamically. Now, in order for our name input to be declared required, that's exactly what we have to do. We have to give it a class of required. Simple as that. The same applies to our email input. One more class is needed there because we need that to be treated as an email. We need to make sure that a valid email is inputted in here. Our message will just leave as it is. So we'll hit save. Where is my site? Excuse me, there we go. Let's refresh that, and then hopefully that's dealt with everything we needed. So I'll hit send, and you can see there that this field is required, and if I just type some gibberish into the email field, you can see that we are required to enter a valid email address. That's perfectly clear. Actually, there's one thing missing because our PSD actually catered for slightly more clarity. We added a red border to the bottom of our error input, so I'm going to add that as well. This is our label error here. So all I need to do is overwrite the initial border by placing it slightly afterwards. Now this dictates that any input with a class of error, which is what's assigned by the script, is now going to get a 5-pixel border of our red. Save that. Refresh my page, and there we go. There's our border. Okay, that's looking pretty cool. Does the job. So, time for some further reading. As always, jump back into our presentation. There we go. Now we mentioned the most recent alternative to our jQuery form validation, and that is the native HTML5 validation. If you'd like to know more about its potential and its current drawbacks, take a look at what Peter Gaston has to say on the matter. Now, before we move into the next video, I'd like you to continue with our design, grab the form validation plugin, and bring the site up to date. Next time on 30 Days to Your First Website Design, we're going to look at cross-browser testing. I'm Ian Yates, and from all of us at here at TutsPlus, thanks for watching.